Well, looky what we have here. Welcome, friends, to part 20. Wow, we're already up to 20 of Project 2025, read by Douglas Wayne Ricketts. I am he. We're on page 251 of this 920-page PDF. Based on the rate we're going, I think I will finish reading this by next February. So lock it in on your calendars, see how close I get. This snake section is titled Additional Areas for Reform. Analytical Integrity. The tradecraft of intelligence analysis is mostly a collection of lessons learned over decades about what works and does not work in a profession whose high-stakes work is performed by thousands, but that also bears little outside scrutiny and provides few metrics by which to gauge success or failure on a regular basis. These lessons have accumulated from the perceived misuse of intelligence by consumers, as was the case with respect to war-related assessments in the Johnson and Bush administrations. Failures such as the failures to warn of the collapse of the Soviet Union and the specific threat of 9/11. No, Clinton's people told Bush's people that Osama bin Laden was focused on attacking the United States and they ignored it. Successes in piecing together tactical and often technical puzzles, such as estimates of Iranian nuclear program maturation, and strategic victories such as anticipating critical geopolitical developments that have been years in the making. Historically, this tradecraft has been passed on in the form of unwritten rules learned on the job and in agency-specific training classes, but increasingly, since the intelligence reforms of 2004, they have been codified IC-wide under the direction of the Deputy Director of National Intelligence for Mission Integration. A RAND study of U.S. intelligence tradecraft notes that the vast majority of intelligence analysts reside outside the Central Intelligence Agency and do work that is tactical, operational, and current. The study goes on to note that the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, has as many analysts as the CIA has, and that the National Security Agency has several times as many analysts, as does the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, indicating both the breadth of the IC's technical collection and its emphasis both on developing analysts who can interpret secret human or technical intelligence in quick turnaround pieces and on countering tactical, asymmetric threats like terrorism. During the Cold War, however, there was a more balanced analytic focus with greater emphasis on strategic intelligence issues as a means of outcompeting the Soviet Union. This kind of analysis deals not only in secrets, but also in mysteries, making well-founded but ultimately unknowable predictions about future actions by a competitor or adversary. The tradecraft necessary to succeed in strategic analysis requires substantive regional and topical expertise developed over the years to supplement experience in the daily collection and understanding of secrets. Institutionally, it also requires that agencies' analytic processes be open to discussion, debate, and dissent because analysts must work together to describe a probable range of future outcomes and warn about unproven current threats rather than using the collection to solve a single puzzle with a definitive answer. Regarding its mission to follow longer-term issues, the IC is falling short in resourcing and in openness to dissenting opinions, which, if taken seriously, can help responsible officials respond more effectively to threats and threat actors. The IC Analytic Ombudsman has expressed concern that hyper-partisanship has threatened to undermine the foundations of our republic, penetrating even into the intelligence community. For example, the Ombudsman noted in a report on the IC's handling of election threat analysis in 2020 that, in his view, CIA officials had deliberately downplayed dissenting views and coordination comments expressed by experts at the National Intelligence Council and elsewhere who felt there was evidence of Beijing's intent to exert at least some influence on the 2020 election, as opposed to the consensus view that Beijing did not interfere in U.S. elections. Senior CIA analysts and leaders made it difficult to have a healthy analytic conversation in a confrontational environment while violating multiple official IC tradecraft standards. By not allowing dissents or considering alternatives, the CIA exercised undue influence on intelligence. Subsequent exposure of China-linked online influence and the FBI's warnings about continued efforts through the 2022 midterms highlight the folly of undue certainty without consideration of alternatives. On election influence and other controversial issues, such as the origin of COVID-19, analysts at the most powerful intelligence agencies have increasingly tended to use the leeway they have been given to insert their political views into their work in order to influence, if possibly even control, the analytic process. They do this in ways that attempt to squash dissent and impair the creation of a culture in which entrenched views are challenged and unpopular analytical lines can survive or not according to their merits. To help the United States and its leaders to outcompete China across multifaceted societal, economic, military, and technological threats, the IC's capability to conduct strategic intelligence analysis that is relevant to policymakers in both parties must be rebuilt and strengthened. Because Beijing may be a peer or even exceed U.S. capabilities in some areas, the post-9/11 analytic focus on quick turnaround secrets is not good enough. Strategic planning, informed by intelligence, must take place for the United States to stay ahead of whatever new threats China may pose. An incoming conservative president will have the opportunity to signal the demand for such strategic products and prioritize their production through communications to intelligence leaders and formal mechanisms such as shifting priorities within the National Intelligence Priority Framework and structuring the president's daily brief. The incoming DNI should also emphasize implementing the recommendations in the Ombudsman's report, especially regarding objectivity, the inclusion of dissenting viewpoints, and more serious efforts to hold senior leaders accountable for back-channel attempts to change or suppress analytic views. Accounting for the long history of intelligence failures and surprises, an incoming conservative president must appreciate the ambiguity, complexity, limits, and assumptions inherent in intelligence assessments. Intelligence often deals with the human dimension in complex decision systems within a foreign country or organization, and this makes consistently accurate predictions difficult, if not impossible, to develop. Seeing something and understanding what you are seeing are two different things, so a president should consistently and patiently press the IC about its potential biases, assumptions, methodology, and sourcing. With regard to election threat analysis and politically controversial topics, agency leaders should take seriously the Ombudsman's admonition that we need to maintain tradecraft standards across all countries and topics by ensuring that equitable standards apply across all foreign threat actors. Analysis should be put forward without regard to the domestic political ramifications of intelligence conclusions. Obligation to share and real-time auditing capability. The federal government has made admirable progress in recent years by being more forward-leaning in sharing cyber threat intelligence with private sector partners and the public, emphasizing that the protective nature of such information is of value only if put into the right hands at the right time. Since critical infrastructure and services are overwhelmingly owned, managed, and defended by the private sector in the United States, there has been an increasing emphasis on declassifying intelligence and sharing actionable information with private sector partners, often through industry-specific information sharing and analysis centers, ISACs, regional meetings of government and private sector experts called InfraGard, run by the FBI, direct public notification from the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and increasingly, the NSA, and more discreet one-on-one engagements led by the collecting agencies. These programs properly recognize the private sector's role in providing cybersecurity for Americans. In practice, however, the intelligence shared by the U.S. government through these venues is too often already known or no longer relevant by the time it makes its way through the downgrade process for sharing. In addition, government-shared information often needs to take advantage of the opportunity to provide contexts, such as attribution, trends, and size of the observed cyber problem. As warranted, additional context should be provided to the private sector as a matter of routine. To continue improving the U.S. government's ability to defend the country's most vital networks, the IC must adopt an obligation to share policy process, including the capacity for right to release intelligence products whereby newly discovered technical indicators, targeting, and other intelligence relevant to cyber defense are automatically provided either to the public or to targeted entities within 48 hours of their collection, which is how counterterrorism intelligence has been managed for years when it comes to a duty to warn. Under this policy, agency heads should still have the flexibility to withhold intelligence for operational or counterintelligence reasons, but would need to report regularly to Congress on the number of and justification for exceptions. This policy would make sharing intelligence and defending networks the default, as it already is in the rest of the cybersecurity community outside the IC, to improve the quantity, relevance, and timeliness of defensive information while ensuring accountability for top leaders when they must withhold this information. One of the most significant challenges within the IC is presented by the need to share information promptly among the 18 elements of the intelligence enterprise. The only long-term solution to the understandable tension between the need to share information and the need to protect intelligence sources and methods is a robust real-time auditing capability that electronically flags unauthorized access. Under an identity management system with real-time audit, even the most sensitive information acquired by America's intelligence agencies can be shared, and the access to and use of that information are appropriately monitored. Establishing a real-time auditing capability is essential to decreasing the risk for the heads of intelligence agencies in meeting their statutory requirements to ensure that they protect sources and methods associated with the classified information their agencies collect. Overclassification. There is a broad consensus across the U.S. government and among stakeholders that the system for classifying, declassifying, and otherwise marking and handling sensitive information is at a crossroads. Exorbitant amounts of classified data are created daily, and agency personnel often mistakenly choose classification as the default selection to ensure national security. At the same time, the effectiveness of downgraded and carefully declassified information to support foreign policy efforts has been borne out in, for example, alerting the broader world of Russia's buildup and likely plans for its invasion of Ukraine. Oh yeah, keep in mind this book was released in 2023. 2 executive orders principally govern how the U.S. government handles classified and sensitive information. Executive Order 13526, Classified National Security Information, issued in 2009, prescribes the classification levels and procedures for declassification. Executive Order 13556, Controlled Unclassified Information, issued in 2010, aimed to establish a uniform program for managing all unclassified information that requires safeguarding or dissemination controls. The current system for declassifying classified national security information, CNSI, is extraordinarily analog, requiring experts' review of individual records. Declassification policies are based on human review of paper and need to contemplate and handle the proliferation and volume of digital records created by agencies. The U.S. government will soon reach the point at which manual review is impossible. The declassification of CNSI should support key U.S. national security objectives, reflect mission priorities, and not serve solely as a necessary procedural function. Reforms should include tighter definitions and greater specificity for categories of information requiring protection, more stringent policies to effect significant reductions in the number of original classification authorities, OCAs, stricter accountability measures at the OCA level, and more detailed security classification guides. Enhanced metrics for accuracy of classification. A general simplification of the overall system for the benefit of users. On the back end, an ODNI-run declassification process that is faster, nimbler, default to automated, and larger scale should be a priority. Additionally, investments in IT are required to deal with the growing volumes of CNSI collected and produced in the digital age, along with many years' worth of existing analog and digital holdings that could provide valuable historical insights. An incoming administration needs to explore options to prioritize funding for innovation in declassification management. For example, by establishing a budget line item specifically for the modernization of declassification or designating funding for program classification management as a special interest item. The administration will also need to transition to using technology, including tools and services for managing big data, which provide a robust electronic record repository, making information within and across agencies easier to organize and locate, and facilitating more rapid review and release capabilities for records of emerging interest. Artificial intelligence/machine learning, which, when incorporated into existing business practices, enables machine interpretation of unstructured text and data, applies decision support technology to enable more consistent classification decisions, and expedites reviews between agencies, and expansion of commercial cloud services, which facilitate the rapid testing and deployment of new tools and technologies. However, technology is not a panacea. Human expertise in information holdings and routine validation of the technology will always be necessary. With or without machine assistance, agencies will require more people and more varied skill sets to improve their ability to meet the electronic records era's classification and declassification demands and serve an incoming administration's goals. Broader U.S. government and IC intelligence needs. Increasingly, conflicts among U.S. adversaries such as China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are conducted in the realms of technology and finance. This challenge requires new tools, authorities, and technological expertise across the U.S. government, particularly at the Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS, and the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, CFIUS, which is housed at the Treasury Department. An incoming conservative president should task his DNI and Secretary of Commerce with increasing coordination, the resources needed for BIS and SCIF capacity, and proper and necessary intelligence sharing to counter the activities of multifaceted adversaries such as China. This would include additional work with private sector expertise, granting clearances to niche sector experts and United States citizen commercial and financial partners as needed. Cover in the digital age. Even in the public domain, it is becoming increasingly clear that protecting the identities of undercover intelligence officers is difficult in the digital age. The truth is that as our daily activities are conducted predominantly in the digital domain, our antiquated system for providing cover to undercover officers has lagged woefully behind the threat from foreign adversaries. The DIA, CIA, and FBI are increasingly aware of this threat and are devoting resources to the problem. Their back-office infrastructure, however, is such that they are still using methods for providing cover from decades past that put valuable intelligence officers at unnecessary risk. How intelligence officers and their families are taught to use smartphones and social media, travel, conduct banking, and take and share pictures, even how and when they are paid, can make it difficult to protect identities. Legends, fake backstories, and identities are often weak, incomplete, and unable to stand up to a basic Google search. Officers operating under non-official cover are offered even less protection and training to help them succeed. In addition, ubiquitous technical surveillance, UTS techniques, being refined by technologies emerging from the regimes in China and Russia, will continue to be highly challenging for intelligence officers. An incoming administration will need to double down on resourcing and training so that members of the IC will have the expertise they need to operate clandestinely and successfully against hard targets. Privacy Shield. For many years, the European Union, EU, has tried to force US companies operating in Europe to follow its data privacy regulations. Misleading claims in the 2013 Snowden leaks destroyed the initial safe harbor framework that allowed American companies to transfer data across the Atlantic. Its successor, the Privacy Shield framework, was struck down by European courts on the grounds that it provides insufficient protections for EU citizens against hypothetical US government surveillance. Those same European courts exempted the intelligence services of EU member states from the standards applied to the US, suggesting that trade protectionism may be the real motive behind data privacy regulations. In 2022, the Biden administration negotiated a new agreement, the Transatlantic Data Privacy Framework, intended to withstand European legal challenges. Given the fate of its predecessors, it is not certain that it will survive. Executive Order 14086, Enhancing Safeguards for United States Signals Intelligence Activities, implements this new framework by attempting to align signals intelligence collection practices with European privacy regulations. At most, the executive order's changes will be helpful support for the framework in future European litigation. At worst, they could throw sand in the gears of important intelligence programs. An incoming conservative president should reset Europe's expectations. Brussels has always arbitraged the difference between being a military ally against, for example, Russia, and conducting a full-blown trade conflict with the United States. Restrictions on data exports have been part of the trade conflict, but now they could seriously harm our military and intelligence capabilities. Moreover, restrictions on U.S. intelligence collection hurt the Europeans themselves, especially as the United States shares unprecedented amounts of intelligence on Russia's invasion of Ukraine with Europeans. Europe is telling the United States to meet intelligence oversight standards that no European country meets. At the same time, exports of data to China are unexamined and so far free from legal challenges. That violates World Trade Organization agreements as an arbitrary and discriminatory data protection standard. It is a betrayal by a nominally allied jurisdiction. European court rulings that struck down prior data privacy frameworks were grounded not in constitutional law, but in a treaty among European nations. If the EU accepted an international agreement that data may flow to the United States under a more reasonable standard than the one adopted by the court, that interpretation would be binding, at least as a gloss on the earlier treaty. The United States has never seriously pushed back against the EU. Now is the time. An incoming president should ask for an immediate study of the implementation of Executive Order 14086 and suspend any provisions that unduly burden intelligence collection. At the same time, in negotiations with the Europeans, the United States should make clear that the continued sharing of intelligence with EU member states depends on successful resolution of this issue within the first 2 years of a president's term. It is time for a real solution, not the 30 years of stopgaps imposed by Brussels. President's Daily Brief, PDB. An incoming conservative president should make clear what the president's daily brief is and is not. The PDB should be for the president specifically, with a much narrower distribution and addressing areas of strategic concern. During the transition, the future National Security Advisor, along with the DNI, should conduct a review of current PDB recipients and determine which should remain recipients when the president's term begins. Instead of being used as the statement of record for the agencies, the PDB often misses the areas of interest for presidents and their senior advisors. The president should want the PDB to focus on providing the information needed for the often imperfect and complex decisions that a president needs to make, which should always be based on the best intelligence that can be gathered. Where consensus and agreement are possible, an IC-coordinated product is excellent, but insights provided by properly channeled dissent can lead a president to ask relevant questions of his DNI and IC. A future DNI determines the PDB briefer based on recommendations made by the Deputy Director of National Intelligence for Mission Integration, MI. Historically, briefers have come from the CIA, but a future president and DNI should consider a primary briefer or a rotation of briefers from other IC elements. Additionally, the entirety of the PDB staff and production should be located at ODNI. National Intelligence Council, NIC. The National Intelligence Council is the IC's premier analytic organization and includes more than a dozen national intelligence officers, NIOs, each of whom leads the IC's analysis within a regional, China, Russia, Iran, etc., or functional, cyber, counterproliferation, economics, etc., mission area. This includes authoring national intelligence estimates on major strategic issues with the entire AC, overseeing and deconflicting the annual analytic plans of each agency, and weighing in on day-to-day major analytical issues, sometimes individually, for example, by writing the NIC's strategic memos or providing detailed expert briefings to the president before major decisions. Historically part of the CIA, the NIC was reorganized into the ODNI, as was the PDB. It retains the CIA's objective analytic culture and is staffed primarily with CIA officers. However, as many as 25% of its NIOs over the decades have come from academia or the private sector, bringing in much needed outside expertise to collate and understand intelligence with perspective and skills that are not necessarily nurtured within the IC. In recent years, there has been a greater emphasis on encouraging officers from other agencies, particularly the DIA, NSA, and FBI, to serve as NIOs or as their deputies. To encourage greater analytic independence and debate, the incoming administration should require that non-CIA officers comprise at least 50% of the NIC's membership, and that the first among equals NIC chairman is an outsider from one of the 3 major IC agencies with reporting responsibility to the PDDNI. Opening these senior analytic roles to the best analysts, regardless of agency, would also encourage the continued maturation of analytic cadres and tradecraft at those agencies, and give them an equal voice in interagency analytical disputes, which in turn would give the President access to the best thinking and a variety of sources and perspectives from across the entire AC, rather than from the CIA alone. IC Chief Information Officer. The Intelligence Community Chief Information Officer, ICCIO, directs and oversees all aspects of the classified IT budget for all of the IC's 18 elements. As the DNI's principal advisor for technology, the ICCIO must be well-versed in technology, acquisitions, operations, and intra-agency cooperation to advance our technical prowess, and simultaneously direct a bureaucracy that, left unchecked, will serve each element's own preferences. To ensure that procured and implemented technology and policy reflect the administration's agenda, the ICCIO must have the support of the DNI and possess the ability to command cooperation between and promote interoperability across IC members. Because of the unique responsibilities entrusted to this position, incumbency has seesawed between political appointees and career civilians. Due to its congressionally capped salary, the position is often filled by an SES-level member administratively detailed to support the DNI. At times, the ICCIO is incorrectly referred to as the ODNI-CIO. By law, and to secure unbiased execution across all of the IC's 18 elements, the same individual may not serve as ICCIO and ODNI-CIO. They are two distinct positions. Critical areas and IC IT portfolio priorities for the ICCIO include, but are not limited to, transparent accounting and allocation of IT investments across the IC, including commercial cloud computing and storage, C2E. Recognized and uniform security access for people, systems, and capabilities to enable interoperability across IC elements. 5G/6G data transmission and network interoperability, which is vital to IC element operations. Artificial intelligence and machine learning. Quantum cryptography and post-quantum encryption, PQE. And cybersecurity infrastructure, where Biden administration changes have realigned and reassigned management oversight and IT architecture responsibilities to NSA and DHS/CISA, conflicting with ICCIO delineated roles. An incoming administration should appoint the ICCIO as a primary member of the DNI staff, along with the ODNI General Counsel, IC Chief Financial Officer, and ODNI Chief Operating Officer. The President-elect should require immediate reviews of the progress in implementing post-quantum encryption at a minimum for IC and defense systems, but preferably throughout the government. The President's National Security Memorandum specifying the goal of mitigating as much of the quantum risk as is feasible by 2035 needs to be revised in light of the magnitude of the threat. Accounting for the investment that will be needed to secure IT systems for national security should be a top priority. ODNI, CIA, and IC technology issues. In recent years, the IC has had a mandate from multiple administrations to advance technology needs for intelligence, needs that have seen massive changes as a result of such threats as China's advancements in technology and data infrastructure. Many of the projects coming out of ODNI and CIA's Science and Technology Directorate, S&T, focus on expensive, AI-driven open source work, but there is likely duplication of effort in areas where the private sector and entrepreneurs are already making progress. The Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Activity, IARPA, and S&T should focus primarily on challenging technology problems, avoiding duplication of what is already being done well in the private sector in such areas as practical defense cyber intelligence and artificial intelligence research would help to focus the agencies on the complex shadow tasks at hand, while simultaneously freeing limited resources for advancement in other areas. President's Intelligence Advisory Board and PIAB Intelligence Oversight Board. The President's Intelligence Advisory Board, PIAB, is charged with providing the President with an independent source of advice on the IC's effectiveness while offering insights into the IC's future plans. The board is meant to have access to all information needed to perform its functions and to have direct access to the President. The Intelligence Oversight Board is a standing committee within the PIAB. These entities should be tasked with giving independent, informed advice and opinion concerning major matters of national security, focused on long-term, enduring issues central to advancing and protecting American interests. This should include taking a broader, deeper look at critical trends, developments, and their implications for U.S. national and economic security, relying on unclassified and open source information. And I'm going to stop there. You're not hearing it because I'm pausing every time it has, but there's a lot of siren activity in my neighborhood. It sounds like an accident because I heard a fire truck trying to blast its way through. Hopefully everybody's okay out there. The next section is called The Importance of Space. This recording and all other recordings related to this Project 2025 reading are copyrighted by Douglas Wayne Ricketts. All rights reserved. Unless you agree with me that Project 2025 sucks, then please feel free to use as much of this reading as you want. Thanks for listening.